Hold on. LinkedIn is not going live. This is usually temporary. Wait a moment for it to try
Please
again.
hold.
Right. So, for everybody. All right, now we're live. Let's do this.
Here we go. Hey.
What's up? It's Rob Cressy, and I'm really excited for this conversation with Shauna Griffiths. Shauna, great to be jamming with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to see you in this new year, this crazy new year we're headed into. Thanks for having me.
And speaking of that, being somebody who listens to language crazy new year, I'm always interested in seeing how people are going to approach this new year. And it's
Yeah.
actually a great segue for what we're going to talk about on living a life of leadership and what that journey looks like, as well as how you can be more effective and efficient while constantly evolving. And to give some backstory, you and I jammed right before the holiday break. And it was just a good jam session. You and I
Yeah.
think very similar. We've got very similar energies and mindsets. And the action item at the end of it was, hey, we should do a LinkedIn Live together or streaming live everywhere. And I was like, let's do this because I think there's going to be a ton of value that we can give to others, but certainly as it relates to making sure that 2021 is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I think the craziness is like a lot of what you just were talking about, with that, like, be efficient and effective as you're trying to do so many things. I think because the reality is, like, look, the calendar changed, but not that much changed. And so, I think people are still trying to, but there's this yearning to do more, to, do a lot at once. And so I think that there is an element of crazy in that. And I just mean the frenzy, the frenetic energy. And so I think, that's kind of what I talk about with it. But I think, we all have to kind of figure out how to rein that in and figure out how we make it productive for ourselves.
So, what I would actually say is we should focus on the inverse.
Mm.
So, the opposite of crazy frenetic energy would be
Yeah.
slowing down and doing less. And you're like, wait a second. How in the world does that work? And I've learned as a creator and an entrepreneur and someone who loves to brainstorm and create ideas, whose head at all times is just going pew, 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 all the
Yeah.
time, is you actually need to break it down onto the simplest thing possible. Because
Hmm.
as we look at a journey of creating something, whether in ourselves or externally out there, you have to say, all right, what is one action that I can do right
Yeah.
now that is going to allow me to make progress or get the result that I'm looking for? And so often it is the uncertainty that leads to inaction. And so when we're talking about crazy frenetic energy, and it can actually be something where you're in a good spot and you're really amped up and you're really excited about everything, but you lose focus because there's so many things to do. It's like
Hmm.
going to eat at the Cheesecake Factory and they give you a menu that has advertising in it and it's like 80 pages and it's like, here's ribs and shrimp and pizza and pasta and all of this. And you're like, well, wait a second. I don't need all of these choices. How about we just get sushi where I know I
Yeah.
can just order sushi? And that's a mindset that I very much use and adopt on let's do less because doing less actually allows you to do more.
Yeah, it's true. But I think so. I think that there's an element of like slow down, do less. But I think the reality is, if I think about myself right now, I'm doing several things, and I'm not. The reality is I'm going to continue to do those things, but I think finding a way to channel your energy so it's not crazy frenetic, even though that is the environment and the landscape that I think we're existing in right now. And I know my own tendencies to do many things. And I think there's things where we can build in to find out how are there elements of our day to help us slow ourselves down or to not have that crazy frenetic. So like, for example, yesterday, first day back, I'm doing a bunch of different things. And I found myself automatically going right into multitasking. And I thought about it later. At the end of the day, I just felt like so much of my energy was sucked out and I felt really depleted by the end of the day. It was such an extreme difference of how I felt over break, where I wasn't on calls all day and video calls and everything, and I wasn't multitasking all day. And so because I thought at the end of the day, as I thought back to the day, I was like, okay, wait a second. How could I have been more effective and efficient for myself to best serve myself? And I was like, okay, no more multitasking. And so I think there's just like ways that we can figure out how to continue to evolve, continue to lead, but do so in ways that we keep ourselves in check. Again, because it comes down to like, are we actually serving ourselves in the way that we're operating, or are we feeding the beast? And, you know, I'm someone who I look at myself, look in the mirror, right? And I was like, holy shit, I just fed the beast today on my first day back. So, you know, that was a conscious way that I try to keep myself in check, and made that realization just last night.
So here's something that I love about what you're saying is you have an element of awareness that you're bringing to this that I believe is a challenge for most people because they don't even have this awareness. So as we look at how do you make 2021 amazing, well, it starts with awareness. And I always like to say self-awareness is a gift that I wish I could give everyone. And it's not something that happens automatic. I know for me that happened probably 8 years ago when I left the corporate world to become an entrepreneur full time and start my own business. And when I went from making six figures to $0 overnight, all of a sudden shit got real. You're like, well, wait a second.
Oh yeah.
All of this is on me.
What just happened to me? Yep.
So then you realize, and it's not just a business thing. It's about personal. It's about fitness. It's about mindset. It's about eating. It's about happiness. It's about relationships. It's everything in your world. And it's such a beautiful gift because it is a blank canvas of which you get to design, but therein lies sort of, we talked about the frenetic energy and crazy of so many things that you can do. Well, now that you're accountable for everything in your world, now you're accountable for everything in your world. And what you just said is, well, wait a second, I realized that I was feeding the beast. So I loved that you were aware of it because this conversation is not about perfection. And quite frankly, it's the opposite of it. And it's probably our willingness to be not perfect and be cool with it, because we know that we're constantly looking to make decisions aligned to our purpose that are going to be action oriented. Doesn't mean we're going to do everything right the entire time, but where are we coming from in this? Are we being intentional about it? Are we being aware about these things? Are we trying to design the way that we operate our lives? And if so, what does that blueprint look like? And I think that's one of the things that we are going to jam about is, what does the blueprint look like? And for this conversation, it was an easy one for me to prep for because all I had to do is go back to our notes from our previous conversation. I said, hey, let's expand on some of these things. And one of the things that I wrote down was the way they think about the process of their life. So as it relates to you and I in this conversation, in how we think about the process of our life, because a lot of people, I believe, don't have a process for their life. And I think about something my branding coach, Gil Naveau, taught me, and it was live by design, not by default. And when I heard that for the first time, I was like, wow, I love this. As someone who's an architect of my life, I loved the intention of something like that. So I'm curious from your standpoint, can you just take us a little bit into the process? I know we've got a lot that goes into our process, but let's try and give some nuggets of value to people by saying, hey, here's how we think about the process of our life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like you were just talking about awareness and that art of being perfectly imperfect almost. It's something I think about quite often. And I think the process is, for me, that process is that North Star of continuing to evolve and not having, I don't have a process like listed out. I'm not someone who's like, oh, I'm going to identify this goal and just go get that. And I think, and it's not that I'm not guided or don't have a thought in where I want to go, but I think it's actually my coach actually recently was reminding me of this 200-foot journey. Actually, it was something probably, I think it's Jack Canfield talks about, where it's like, you don't have to have the entire process mapped out. You don't have to know exactly how you're going to get. If you have an idea, like all you need to know is be able to see is that 200 feet in front of you to keep going. And for me, I think like process is about a bit of that like self-check. It's that continue to move forward. Sometimes that's it. Like just got to keep moving forward and have an idea of where you want to go. Over time, I've realized that process it's a bit of that step outside yourself to be aware of yourself, but also your be aware of how you actually impact and affect other people. Because I think a lot of people think self-awareness is all about themselves, but a lot of times it's like, actually, how are you impacting other people? And then, so I guess part of that process is, like I said to you last night, I had to go through the day, at the end of the day, examine what worked, what didn't. So I think that's really a lot of what the process is for me. And it's not just it's not just about business, right? You talked about, this is a lifestyle. This is a way that I am as a human. And so, I think of various elements of my life and I do the same thing. And, I think that sometimes that can be really helpful so that I'm not just thinking, oh, I can actually more focus on the journey and how I'm evolving on that journey rather than like, did I achieve that end goal today? Because if you think about it, I'm going to be set up for failure every single day. If every single day, all I'm trying to do is achieve the end goal. So, and this has only come to me over time of like really examining and just seeing how I feel. It's not something that I just like woke up one day and I just suddenly became this way.
Yeah. And I really like what you said about being aware of how you impact other people. And it's something that over the years, there's a term that I learned called sensory acuity, where essentially, are you aware of your surroundings?
Yeah.
And the exercise was so simple. So this is in the pre-COVID era, but we would just go to a bar and you're just sitting there with your friends and we're just watching sports and having beers or whatever. And I would just sit there and allow the conversation to unfold in front of me. And I was just listening and being aware. And this is rare because most people don't do this. But I just sat there and I was like, let me just observe what's happening in front of me.
Yeah.
And I realized it was a series of people talking over each other, of each having their own input on something, and then how that relationship evolves to everything. So we might be talking about something and then someone comes in really loud and goes blah, 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 and completely derails it the other way. And I'm just sitting there watching all of this and no one really is aware that any of this is happening because we're just so used to this is the way that things are. Where now one of the things that I like to do is I just like sit back and let life unfold in front of me sometimes, but I'm very intentional about this on how often are we in any given relationship, whether it's you and I jamming on a live stream or going to the bar with our friends to have a drink and allowing life to unfold and to have this game. Like I've got a background in improv. So there's a give and take in this where yes and is such an important principle of improv, meaning we're building on top of the ideas for each other and we're there supporting each other. But as I'm observing what's happening in front of me, there's no yes anding and there's no supporting each other in all of this. We're all sitting here thinking about what we can say to add the noise to the conversation. And of course, I'm someone who does this as well. This is a very normal thing that all of us do. But all I'm talking about right now is the awareness of it. And then as it relates to how you impact other people. So now you can really think about this with the relationships close to us, where are we aware enough to not say something that could trigger something that creates a new domino effect of energy. This is one of the things that I probably work on the most, that I am so aware of, because I understand when something super small can get brought up and then it starts rolling downhill and 30 other things that have been boiling up all of a sudden come on board. And in relationships, it can be a really simple thing. So for example, I'll be sitting watching TV with my wife or something, and I'll just be chilling, enjoying myself. And she's like, hey, do you want to go get me a drink? And it's like, no, like in my mind, I'm like, no, why do I want to go get you a drink right now? Like we're both sitting here chilling, having a good time. And all of this happening in a split second. But then I have a choice to make. I can say no, and then she goes up and gets it, and then who knows what's going to happen right there. Or I can choose to say, all right, Rob, I don't really want to do this. But if I do this, this gets a positive yes rolling down the hill for our good energy.
Yeah, and so true.
What that does is it allows me to get a positive yes rolling, even if I didn't want it. instead of a small little no. And you're
Friction.
like, it doesn't mean she was going to go blow up on me when she goes to get the water out of the refrigerator.
Yeah.
But it just shows how there's two different paths that can happen. So now you can start to think about, wow, the choices that I make or the way that I respond to situations, how that can impact other people. Because if I say yes versus if I say no is going to have two completely paths. And maybe that no leads to something that has a multiple day effect, as opposed to that yes, man, now we're living in bliss and maybe she's going to do something nice for me and I don't realize it. So maybe that yes inspires somebody else. Does that relate to you at all?
Oh my God, so much. So you said so much that I'm like, first of all, totally shaking my head, but I feel it like in my soul. I think that there's that self-awareness of like that choice I make right now. What is going to be that ripple effect? Is it going to add to the outcome that I want? And the outcome might not be like, oh, I make that person happy in that moment. But to your point, it's contributing to that forward momentum, that positivity, that, like making something happen. I talked about it earlier, like that going forward, and that also like that lack of friction. And it's not that we shouldn't have friction, but at the same time, it's not always needed, and again, like if you want to be actually influence things in a positive way, it truly is like I work to hold myself accountable for how am I contributing to that in a positive way. And while you were talking, it also made me think about something that I often talk about. I don't know where I picked it up, but I swear I find myself relating to it every single day, which is that intention and perception are not usually and often the same things. And so I think that really also helps because it's not just let me act and then observe how someone else, feels about that. But if you're actually put some thought into, okay, I need to deliver this message or to say this, and this is my intention, but actually pause and think about how could that person actually perceive it? Because if we just operate in life like, well, I'm just going to go act however I want to. I think there is an element of that awareness and that process, to your point earlier, of, again, that self-check of like, well, how could that actually be perceived so that you learn to tweak what you're saying or how you're saying it, that your intention, you try to close the gap between intention and perception. You can't always control however somebody else is going to perceive it, right? But again, I think that that's been a really big thing. And it actually happened to me a couple times recently. Well, actually happened to me once recently. And I was in a conversation with someone yesterday and he ended up having the same similar thing happen where his intention was to provide positive, great news to someone. And their perception was literally the opposite. And it's like in that moment being like, whoa, not reacting to that person having, feeling badly or, but just actually being able to step back in the moment and say, okay, wait a second, what just happened here? So I don't know. It's just this really interesting thing that I think happens in the dynamic of communication and, that energy flow, which all of a sudden you can see like, whoa, train wreck, that did not work. The energy has halted.
So a great way, and I've learned this both in sales and relationships, is speaking the words, my intention
yes,
is.
Yes.
So, and you certainly
close
learn
that
this
gap
when you're married or in a relationship with someone where you're like, all right, I can see where there's a way that maybe I'm going to talk about something that triggers something, or I don't want this to get taken anyway, because one of the challenges of thinking and living the way that we do is I'm very candid because I appreciate candor. I don't have time for negativity.
Right.
I don't play games. I know what I want to accomplish and how I help people in the way that we're intentional about making it happen. And quite frankly, we think differently than the majority of the world thinks, and we live differently than the majority of the world lives. And it's very easy to get caught up, as you said, in just everything going on and contributing to that beast. Whereas we live like I have a world. One of the declarations I read every day is I have a world champion mindset. And I truly believe this because of the amount of work that I do on this and the amount of intention on it. But that doesn't always mean that the other people see it our way. And it doesn't mean that we're right. This is just
Exactly.
the lifestyle that we live in. It's oh so hard. So you can say, my intention is ...
Yes.
And if nothing else, you're just giving the precursor to saying, this is the place that I'm coming from. And then to sort of yes and this past week, I listened to an amazing podcast with Ed Milet and NFL Hall of Famer Brian Dawkins. And when I listen to podcasts, I'm usually taking notes in Evernote and trying to get one good nugget.
Yeah.
And Brian Dawkins said something that will be with me forever. And he says, when someone says something offensive to you, you have the option to take offense or leave offense.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, sign me up for that. So how does this relate to what we're talking about right here? So you come in with the right intention. I want to share something. And all of a sudden, boom, a train comes and this did not go the way that I wanted it to. Well, you have to think about, what was the energy in the place that I was coming from? It was good. And that person ended up taking the offense. But that doesn't mean that I have to take offense to them taking offense. I can leave, right? I can leave that and say, all right, I recognize that, but not allow you to take that energy on for yourself, because I'm a big protector of energy. I'm always looking for the energy vampires of the world that are there to suck your energy out. So it's a very challenging thing to do, certainly with personal, close relationships. But that's sort of how I deal with it, in terms of you come from your place and don't allow the external world or relationships or things that are happening to affect you as much as possible.
It's so true. And I think that that's great language to borrow and adapt. And thank you for dropping that nugget. And I think the way that I think about it without having that language until now is to think about this like reaction thing. And I think that when you see that, it's like these atoms flicking out over each other, you know, and it's that like one person acts and the next person. And to your point, it's okay, how are you is that act and react thing going on? And is it in a way that's actually not serving moving forward in like almost sounds cheesy, but like harmonious way? And that doesn't mean that you can't have differing of opinion. You can have a conversation that goes back and forth, differ of opinion in a way that is actually still moving forward. But I think that, you know, the way I've thought about it is I don't want to be in a place where I'm just like acting and reacting with another person, because that usually doesn't go so well. So, you know, I do think that's so important what you said about, and I often give that as a nugget to people, is if you're focusing on trying to close that gap between intention and perception, then speak your intention in a very, you know, literal way. I'm going to tell you this because, or use the actual word, my intention in telling you this is this. So it helps to like break down that almost like that defense, that wall people have up. And I think it also even frees you up to be able to have a conversation and say something in a way where like, you're not then afraid that what you're going to say is going to be taken a certain way, which again, I think can even, if that can even actually have like alter the way you deliver something if you're on guard. Oh God, they're going to take it a certain way. So I think there's a lot of freedom that can come, you know, to that energy, to that moving forward by being aware of these things.
Yeah. And I've got a super simple tactical thing that you can do around this. If you ever receive an email from me or a DM, it's going to start the same way every single time. So for example, we're recording this on a Tuesday. Every email today will say "Happy Tuesday!" ! Why in the world do I do this? Because I know in email, things can get lost in translation. And certainly, I don't know what's going on in your world, because you could have just had something happen to you and you just read this with a certain frame of mind and you're like, wow, this is not what I expected from an intention standpoint. But it is very difficult to take this the wrong way when I start with happy ! On the day. Happy Tuesday. Because what I'm doing right out of the gate, I'm setting that positive intention.
Awesome.
So as we think about relationship building and or our own lives, what can we all do to set the positive intention? So looking back to process side of things, for me, that starts very first thing in the morning. So the first thing that I do every single morning is I say to myself, today is going to be a great day. And I probably say that to myself anywhere from 3 to 10 times in the first 2 hours that I'm up. And why do I do it? Drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
Positive intention, positive intention, positive intention. Because I understand what that's going to do for my own self-belief in raising my own being of the person that I know that I am. And as life would happen, guess who probably has more great days than most people? This guy. Why? Because I start every day saying today's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that everything's puppy dogs and rainbows every single day. But that's also just a result or an outcome that happened. That doesn't mean I can't walk through life with positive energy and helping other people and inspiring other people and doing good things where I am more focused on my insides and what I can control and less on the outside world.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like going back to this whole, when I referenced crazy world, like that is a great way. You have these tactics, and I have my own too, that help me to be able to operate as I do in the reality of the landscape that we're facing. And so I can't, some people have asked me like, well, how do I have, or why do I have the mindset or, or the way of living that I do? And it's because it is my choice to walk this path with this mindset. It is my choice to walk the path with a positive outset, to have a positive impact on people. And that is, it takes work. We talked about this earlier, like the work you put in every day to keep yourself like that and to keep going. And it is a joy to do it, and it is still work. And so, I think that having these little things that we do every day are so important. And the more we can share it, I think people can pick up little nuggets that can resonate with them. The other thing I think is interesting about when you said that that's what you say to yourself, the first 2 hours, is that all people, I think, need these things that can help interrupt the tendencies or this like train of thought, because I think anybody can say that had something negative that happened, and their mind often will go back to that person or that situation screwed me. I feel so bad about it, blah, blah, blah. And some reason our brain goes to that. And so it's like, what do you have in your toolbox? What do I have in my toolbox that I can pull out to interrupt that? I think that that's what I can't stress it enough. We need tools that we can interrupt that to get ourselves back on the track we want to be on, so that we continue that forward momentum in a positive way. And again, that's such a ripple effect. You talk to one person, you have this energy, and it's like, wow, like how much do you get people say, like they comment on it and it's catchy, right? It's infectious. And so I think that's a part of the why of living this way. And, again, the ripple effect we're trying to create in this world.
Yeah. And I love how you framed all of that, because this is work, but I also like to reframe work to play, because work oftentimes has a negative connotation.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta go to work. I got to go work on myself. But you're right. So is this easy? 0%. But would I want this any other way? No, this is the greatest thing in the world,
because I don't want to live the opposite way.
Of course. So if you're giving like, Rob, how are you always so positive? I'm like, well, when I realize that negativity isn't going to serve me or help me get to where I want to go, why would I be anything other than positive? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, but no, this is very binary and absolute. Like, I'm the leader of Team Good Vibes, because the negativity of the world is not going to serve me. And if anything, it's going to take me in the other direction right there. So why would you want to live anything other than that? Well, it just doesn't mean I pop out of bed and I'm doing round off back handsprings, but I've got to boot myself up to that. And I even think about this morning. So I woke up, I had my alarm set for 5:58 a.m. So it's the beginning of the year. I'm like, all right, let's make sure I'm doing, certainly right out of the gate, the best that I can to cultivate the state of being that I want to be. And for whatever reason, anyone who's ever woken up early, you sit there and I'm brushing my teeth like this. And one of the things that I've learned is I say 3 people I'm grateful for. So I'd be like, I'm grateful for Shauna. I'm grateful for my dog. I'm grateful for my wife. And my eyes are still closed. And in the back of my mind, the little bitch voice is saying, Rob, just go back to bed for 30 more minutes. And I'm like, 30 more minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I get through brushing my teeth, and I learned this maybe 2 weeks ago. I wrote a little note to myself because I knew I've woken up early for 8+ years. So this is nothing new, but it's hard every single time. As we said, it's work. So I wrote a note that says, waking up is a gift, enjoy the morning. So as I'm like, I don't want to do this, I want to go to bed, I see the note and I read it, and I'm still like, go to bed, 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 go to bed. And then finally I just made the decision. I read the note like 3 times and I'm like, all right, I'm getting up and walk the dog. And why is this of note? Because when I go back to bed for another 30 minutes, what is the thing that gets taken off the plate a little bit more? My personal development time.
Yep.
So meditating, journaling, working on creating my being. Those are the things where, I got to go feed the beast. I got to do emails. I got to do calls. I got this live stream with Shauna. So I know what's going to happen, but it's a simple decision right there. So it was a very easy mechanism that I created. And was that the deciding factor for why I got up? No. But was it there to help contribute to me getting up? Yes. And this never gets easier because you have to show up every single day and put in the work to affirm who you are. And one thing that I recently heard that I really liked is the choices that you make affirm the person that you are in that moment. So this morning, I affirmed that I am someone who gets up at 5:58 a.m. If nothing else for this morning, I gave a little bit more to that person as opposed to giving up a little bit more to the person that wants to go back to bed for 30 minutes.
It's so true. And I think some of the important things that you just pointed out, you talked about decisions and that you're making, choices that you're making. And in talking about it, it also identified like the accountability, and I think that those things are so important. I think it also takes us from a position of being like suffering and being stuck to doing. And again, these are conscious decisions to make. But I think it's so important, again, whether you have these tools or you have these, notes to self, and, and it works for people of all ages. I was sent to my dad. I was like, all right, Dad, where's your list of what you're grateful for? And I talked to him the other day, and he's like, I pull out my list every day. And, because I think that, these are trying times for everybody. So I think these are all little nuggets that we can use to help us to achieve this state, to stay in this state. And I loved when you talked about your morning routine. I too am a little bit notoriously a morning person. And, I always up around like somewhere between 5 and 5:30, and I'm going, and that's actually when I feel the best in my day and charged. But I think it is important, like for my morning meditation, when I do that, that has become part of my ritual. And the things that I say at that time, I end my meditation with gratitude. And so I think those are things that help to set the stage for my day, that helps to set my energy for the day, again, because these are actions you take to help set you up to contribute to the person that you want to be in this world today, every day, And so I just think it's really important. And the more that we can share this with people, my hope is, after running into so many people that I think could benefit from some positivity and some being better leaders and things like that, I think that the more we can share stories, and that's part of what I'm trying to do. We have a new content series which you're actually going to be on. We're really excited about that. Real Talk through SLG Impact is to help tell these stories and to help people, because someone may hear what I say, but it doesn't resonate. But then they hear you say it in a different way, in different words, and then it really resonates. So I think the more we can get out there and share this and provide tools and tips for people, then I think we help to cultivate people and a world that is more intentional, more positive, and can move forward. And I think that, given all that we're facing these days, I want more of that. And I want to be contributing to more of that.
So here's what I love about what you just said is we are very much aligned, because one of the things that I'm being extremely intentional about in 2021 is giving the gift of conversation for others. So you and I, we had no desired outcome for this. We were going to have this conversation. We were going to help some people. But you know what I want to do is offer up the opportunity for someone to be in conversation with me or with you, because you said,
Yeah.
you're like, hey, something you said might resonate with them, or something I said. And what I like to say is, if you heard anything that I said or Shauna said that really resonated with you, then I want to invite you to be in conversation with me. You can hit me up.
Yep.
Go to robcressy.com. I've got a link where you can go to a jam session and get a 30-minute session where you and I can talk about your vision in what you want to accomplish as it relates to building your brand and growing and thought leadership and impact. And it very much relates to everything that you just said, Shauna, because you and I being able to support each other and support others in this process. Well, so many other people have so much goodness inside of them. They say, Rob, I've spent all this time building another brand, but I've never built my brand. And I've never
Yeah.
I'm a thought leader, but I've never created content or live streaming before. And you and I live this. And whether it's the tactical on how I create content, all the way to the inner workings and the mindset for how you do these things, I know that the work that you and I both do separately is transformational in people's lives, because we've lived it and we've transformed our lives and we've
Yeah.
transformed others' lives. So I encourage people to hit me up on social media at Rob Cressy, or go to robcressy.com. Shauna, where can people connect with you if they liked what you were saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, count me in. I'm on that too. So you can email me at shauna@slgimpact.com. We have a contact us page on slgimpact.com. You can DM me. I'm either here. You can hit me up on LinkedIn or on IG. We are at SLG Impact on IG. So absolutely, if anything I said resonated, please reach out, and happy to offer time just to chat.
And what I've learned is I've had to go through a transformation where the call to action is not self-serving.
Yeah.
It is actually a gift to others, because
Absolutely.
one of the declarations I read every morning is, I am that a conversation with me is a gift. Because I know that isn't a gift for other people, because I'm not having the conversation for myself. Someone's coming into this conversation and it's like, hey, let's talk about your vision. Where do you want to go? How can I support you in all of this? And it's very much a supporting and an inspiring and a
Yeah.
coaching thing. And that's a gift for others. So I've changed that. Me not saying the call to action is actually doing a disservice to the other person who may want to be in conversation, or who may be able to impact other people through the growing of their own brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I actually was just on a call with someone earlier today, and sometimes people are like, wait, what do you want from this? And I'm like, just to connect, just that is a gift, and to be able to help someone on their journey with that call. And so to your point, I want to, that's a gift that I can give, but it's also a gift that gives back to me. So, I think it's really important, and I love the idea.
Yeah, so Shauna, really enjoyed jamming with you.
Thank
and I
you.
think we're certainly going to have many more conversations about this. I can only imagine once we got a little bit more intentional. I know we had some good topics to talk about here, but it was very easy for us. We just flowed, and I feel like we could literally do a 24-hour live stream, just boom, 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 talking about all of these different things.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to thank you for being in conversation and sharing all of this. And I always know when I'm talking to someone who's awesome, because on the first call, it's always like, man, this should have been a podcast or a live stream.
No, this has been amazing. I'm so grateful, and I do look forward to more. And, we should probably ask people, like, they could even hit us up with topics that we can bring here and, really discuss. So yeah, it's great. And I said to you the first time we talked, which is, there's not a lot of people that I could have this kind of conversation with. So it is such a joy to be able to be in that conversation with you, and to come together to share it. So thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to so much more.
You're welcome. And I would also like to believe that is part of the value of what you and I bring, is because we're not like other people, you're going to feel some sort of way when you're in conversation with us, because it comes from a place of love and joy and support.
Yeah.
And that's something that we all need more of. And certainly if there's things that you want to accomplish in your life, having that in your corner, I know is my own experience, having coaches in my life is just an absolute game changer.
Game changer, super empowering. And from the coach I've had, Leslie Harris, absolutely amazing. I wouldn't be where I am today without his guidance over the years. And so, I second that for sure.
So we will end on that. Shauna, thank you for being
Thank
here.
you so much.
And wanted to send tons of good vibes and positive energy everyone's way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rob.